With Ivy Lee. My name is David Needham, and it's my pleasure to be walking you through some tips and tricks and some things that have worked for me to achieve peak productivity. Here's some information about myself. I'm the Agency and Community Training Manager at Pantheon. It means I get to lead training workshops, create curriculum, and come to cool events like this. I also used to live in the Twin Cities, and so I'm happy to be able to come back and hang out with friends and eat at my favorite places and stuff like that. But I'm also happy to be presenting today with Ivy Lee. Ivy Lee enjoys, chilling with his wife and 3 kids, and being sort of the founder or the father of public relations. Ivy Lee couldn't make it here today because he unfortunately passed away in 1934. But I'm happy to be able to take his message and share it with you all today, and kind of take the things that I've learned from Ivy Lee over the years and really get the most out of it. So back in the early 1900s, Ivy Lee was known as a productivity guru. He's also public relations guru and all that stuff. And he was approached by Charles Schwab. Not the Charles Schwab you probably know. This is Charles Schwab of Bethlehem Steel. And he approached Ivy Lee and said, we would like to improve our productivity. We want to get the most out of our people. We want to do more with our time each day. Can you help us? And he said, absolutely. Just give me 15 minutes with each of your executives. All I need is 15 minutes. And he's like, okay, that's a little weird, but that's great. How much is it going to cost me? And he said, nothing. It's not going to cost you anything. Unless it works. If you feel like you actually get something out of this, if this is helpful for your company, then pay me whatever you want. You can pick the price and whatever it's worth to you. And so he said, okay, accepted. This is a great deal. Let's do it. So what did he do? What's his sort of secret methodology for achieving productivity for these executives? Well, it starts really simply. Start each day, or end each day, by writing down the 6 most important things that you need to do tomorrow. So write down just 6 things. Think about them. What are the things that are going to be important for me to accomplish? What meetings do I need to prepare for? What are the sort of most important things that I actually need to do? So here's just a quick example of some things that might be on my list of 6 things for tomorrow. And I just start by sort of brainstorming style. Just write down all of the things I can think of and add them to the list. And it's important to think about the things like what things must be done tomorrow. Look at your calendar, see what things are on there. Look at your project management software. Look at your task list. Things that you have to do and put them on your list. And if you end up in a case where you can't think of 6 things, it does happen occasionally, that's okay. Try harder. Try to see if you can come up with 6 distinct things that you're working on, and I'll have some tips for improving that a little bit later. But try to come up with 6 things and put them down. Try not to do more than 6 things. You want to focus that up, but you just start by writing down 6 things. Next, we need to prioritize this task list. So we put it in order of importance, or in order that it needs to be done. So look at your day tomorrow. Think about, I have a meeting at 10 a.m. It wouldn't do me any good if I prepare for my 10 a.m. meeting at the bottom. It may not be as important, but if I don't get to that before 10 a.m., it's not going to happen, and that's a problem. So prioritize your list. Come up with something that makes sense for you. It's also important to think about the sorts of tasks that might lead to you being less productive in your day and deprioritize those. So if I need to work on Facebook ads today. If I go to facebook.com, I might click on a link. I might get distracted for a little bit. Therefore, when you're thinking about this prioritization, try to make the things that are going to distract you or kind of derail your thought process, try to put those near the end of the day so that you get the most done with your day. Next, complete one thing at a time. If today, it's the end of the day, you created your list, the next day, tomorrow morning when you wake up, you start on number 1. Get through that thing. You only look at number 1, you only focus on number 1 until you're done with number 1, and then you move on to number 2. And you do that over and over and over again. And the thinking is, as you're going through this list of things, you prioritize this with the good thinking you have, in a proactive sort of way. You're not being reactive to the things of the day. You're focused on the things that you thought yesterday were the most important for you to look at today. And so thinking of your past self as a wise and reasonable person, you need to trust that this list is in an order that makes sense and just start on the first thing. Try not to multitask. Just do the first thing, get through it, and knock it off. At the end of the day, it's entirely possible you may not get through everything on your list, but you can rest assured that you accomplished in this case, the 5 most important things I could have done today. I did. I crossed those off, and that's great. Like, you accomplished 5 really important things. There are times before I had a list like this where I could get to the end of the day, and I can't remember anything important that I did. I might have sent some cool emails, I might have written a little blog thing or this, but was it important? Maybe. But being able to reach the end of your day, and even if you didn't get through everything, looking and seeing, I got 5 really important things done, that feels really good. And then you take this thing, this last one, anything you didn't finish, and then when you're making your list at the end of the day, consider those things you didn't finish and try to put them into your list for tomorrow. So we'll make a new list, and then you start just by making a list again, and then rinse and repeat every single day. So that's the gist of the Ivy Lee method. You create a list of 6 things, prioritize, focus on just one thing and get through the list, and then repeat. Just do it again. And there's a lot of science has actually went into this over time about why does something like this work. And yeah, it's really simple to think about 6 things, but the thing that really sticks with me is that you're looking at things in a more proactive way. You are, like I mentioned before, sort of trusting that the you yesterday, at the end of the day, knows more about the big picture than the you in the moment that has all these things barraging you and hitting you, and that you think about, these are things that are important to me, big picture, I need to focus on these things. And it makes a big difference in getting things done that you really want to get done. And then some tips that kind of go into this. I mentioned try to think about the deadlines you have. If you, as you're prioritizing things, be aware of that. So I had this case when I first started using the Ivy Lee method, where I created my list of 6 things, I prioritized, and I started at it. I did it. But I realized, as I was working on it, that I had a meeting, and I totally missed the prep time for the meeting because it was lower on my list. So that was a problem. There was also another problem where I had lots of big tasks on my list, and so I had things that were really important for me to do today. They needed to be today, not tomorrow, but they weren't important. It just had to be done eventually. So they were like number 5 or number 6 or somewhere near the bottom. But my number 1 task, there's no way I could have completed that today. It was so big that there was no hope for me to get through that one task in a single day's work. Therefore, at the end of the day, I should have kind of thought through this a little more. At the end of the day, I was maybe halfway through number 1, and the thing that had to be done at the end of the day that's maybe not as important did not get done. So that kind of sucked. So learn from the experience that I had with this. Think about the big tasks that you have on your list and break them down. So if you are having trouble coming up with 6 things because I have big important things I need to do, break it up into chunks. So for example, if your responsibility tomorrow is to write a blog post, don't just put on your list, write blog post. Start with draft blog post. Get feedback on blog post. Outline, maybe outline comes first, or research comes first. Break it into chunks that make sense for you, and then that makes having large tasks easier to accomplish. And then you also have a good sense of progress as you're going. So if you don't think you'll finish it tomorrow, you can see how far you got in the process, and you can kind of pick it up easier than the following day. Another strategy is if you can't break it into chunks by tasks, like what you're working on, just commit some time to it. So say, I'm going to spend 1 hour today on this big marketing presentation. And then tomorrow, maybe you spend 1 more hour on the marketing presentation, or maybe 2 hours. It just depends, whatever makes sense for you. But block off the time so that you can actually get through the things that you need to get done. And this is maybe the most important one, but you kind of have to take it seriously. You can create a list of things, but if you don't follow them in order, if you don't actually go through and kind of commit to the process, then it's not going to be as effective for you. As you go through, if you have a chance, if you decide to try this out, you'll soon discover that you will feel so much better. You'll feel productive, and you'll feel happy about the work that you're doing. But then there'll come a day where you're just super busy, or you go on a trip, you take a day off, you whatever, and you're like, okay, I need to come up with my 6 things. I just have so much work to do. Like, I just need to focus on my emails. I need to get through my emails, and I'll make a list tomorrow. And you put it off, and then tomorrow, it's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. You have to be sort of deliberate and, what's the word? Like, kind of committed, intentional. Yeah. And you have to do it if you want to do it. And that's the only way it's going to work for you. So as I was learning about Ivy Lee, I was coming through this process. One of my colleagues, Steve Persh, I was looking at his calendar because I was doing some scheduling for trainings and things like that. And I noticed at the end of every day, he had a thing on his calendar that was just like, I can't remember the name of it, what he calls it now, but it's like his end of day sort of debrief time for himself, where he prepares for the next day and looks at things. And he started this Google form for himself, where he just goes through his checklist of things. It's just a list of things that he likes to do at the end of each day, that he wants to be sure that he does every day. And it works for him. And I was like, amazing. Like, this isn't Ivy Lee. This is another sort of productivity thing. But kind of amazing. And what if these work together? What if I could use something like this to keep myself accountable to Ivy Lee, to remind myself to check my calendar tomorrow, to remind myself at the end of each day to create my list of 6 things. And that's when the light bulb came on, and it has been pretty amazing for me. Like, each of these independently are really cool tricks to do, but together it's really, really great. So I started with a Google form too. I created my own, kind of added in things that are important to me, and it's been really good. So one of the things I like to do is add in into this list my Ivy Lee housekeeping section, where I think about, like, did I complete the 6 things I set out to do today, yes or no? You might have seen I also had some scoring in there. So with Google Forms, you can add in point values for completing, answering correctly on the form. So you can give yourself points to kind of encourage yourself to do that. Next, what are the 6 most important things to do tomorrow? And I just listed them out, just to make myself kind of think about it and put it in there. And then I also had another one for, did I actually add these into my task management software? So the software that I use to actually keep track of my day. So these kind of keep me in line with doing Ivy Lee. And then I've always heard about this concept of continuous improvement, and kind of kept studying and researching that a little bit. And I started thinking about the things that Steve was keeping track of on his form, and realizing those were little continuous improvement things, that kind of make his life a little bit easier. You can also call this idea like, little baby step tasks, little things you do each day to kind of improve yourself, either to be more productive or to be a better person, to be better at work, to kind of all these, it can be whatever it is for you. So here's just a few of the things I have on my list of daily things that I do. Are you at inbox 0? If you have trouble keeping inbox 0, you can ask it as a question at the end, or we can talk later. I have some tricks for that as well. Have you tweeted a helpful resource today? I've never been great about consistent tweeting or social media or anything like that, but something that can kind of keep me out there. As a business also, if you're a small business or a freelancer, things like this to keep you out in the public is really good. Have you reviewed your schedule? So we talked about that one last one. For me, so I'm a Christian, and for me, like, I've noticed that I am a better person myself when I take time to read my Bible, to pray, to kind of set aside that time. I feel like I'm more productive with my day. I have kind of better centered thinking. And so I am deliberate about setting aside a time for that. And that's part of my continuous improvement process. Also, I started experimenting, like, what sort of exercise can I do? Because I don't go to the gym, I don't go run or anything like that. What is a low barrier to entry? Like, I could probably do 10 push-ups. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to add that to my list. And for me, this has been really cool for me. It's just been an experiment, but okay, I'm going to do 10 push-ups every day. And I would do it, and like, okay, it started off being really hard, but I did it. I got through it and went through, and then eventually I got to 10, and I kind of feel like doing 10 more. So I did 10 more. I'm up to 25 a day right now, and sometimes I do that 2 or 3 times in a day if I feel like it. And that's not to brag, it's just to point out, like, kind of the interesting mind trickery you can do with yourself through continuous improvement. it's not about making these big sweeping changes all the time. It's about little things that are bite-sized, that are easy to do, low friction, and then doing them consistently every day. You start to accumulate this wave. It's really cool. And then also journaling. I wanted to commit to writing a little bit every day. Some more tips. Gamification. If gamification works for you, then add gamification, whatever that looks like. The Google form, like I said, you can add a point value. So if you answer, yes, I did this today, or no, I didn't, you get points if you answer yes. And then you can see over time how many points you got each day, which could be pretty cool. Kind of like Steve, if you set up a calendar reminder, if you need to be reminded at the end of every workday to go and do this, of course, set aside time at the end of every workday. If you stop at 5 o'clock, create a calendar reminder at 4:45. Don't have any meetings at that time. Just you and your calendar, you and your Ivy League task list, and get that done. You can also consider this for personal productivity. So I mean, certainly the continuous integration things were very personal, but also, what are you doing this weekend? What are things that you've been wanting to do around the house, or with the kids, or for your hobbies, or other things that you want to get done? This doesn't have to be just for work. You can be more productive in your personal life as well, which I've found to be really rewarding. So I used the Google form for quite a while, and I discovered that I actually like this other app that I tried called Todoist. Todoist has a free tier that I'm currently on. It's been working really well, but basically I start just by creating my projects. So there's the various categories of things that I'm working on. So I have my 6 things that I update every day. I have my daily tasks, which are set to repeat every day. So if I click it off, it'll show up again tomorrow. And then I have just sort of a list of personal and family things that I want to keep track of, usually for the weekend or whatnot. And then I have my sort of side business, and then other things that I just want to keep track of every day. So I put those in there. I add the information I need to. I add in dates and whatnot. And then those automatically show up in my list of today. So at the top here. And that's where I live. And every day when I start my workday, I click on the Today tab, and that shows me all the things I need to do across all these categories. And it helps me stay in line with the things I need to focus on. So this has worked really well for me. Tracking your progress can also be really important. So this kind of goes into another productivity hack called like the Seinfeld Method is one option, where like if you track things over time, you can create this this sort of blockchain of, did I do this every day? Did I do it yesterday? How long have I been doing it for? And you have this pressure to kind of keep the chain going. But basically, in Google Forms, you can, if you have this sort of gamification set up, or even if you don't, you can see your responses each day, and you can see what things are you actually really good at doing, which things do you consistently not do. Maybe think about why that is and see if you can make changes. But if you're not tracking it over time, you're losing out. You're not being as effective with it as you could be. Jumping over to Todoist, one of the things that really attracted me there is that they've been integrating some features for gamification, and specifically for this blockchain and Seinfeld Method type stuff, where they have this idea of karma, where every day you will accumulate karma based on using their product, really, but like adding tasks, completing tasks, for completing your goal of how many tasks you want to accomplish each day. And as you do it consecutively in a certain number of days, it'll start to compound and you'll get even more points. So, for example, this was a time when I was fairly productive, but you see I accumulated points for a certain number of days, or within that time for checking things off. Here's actually a time when there was a recurring task, one of my 6 things that I did not do for a few days in a row. And if you don't accomplish something for a few days in a row, it starts to penalize you for that, which I appreciate because it keeps me on track. So I got negative points for that. And if it's important to me, then I'll prioritize it. It'll show up at the top of my list. And then over time, they actually generate these cute little graphs for you, so you can see what your trend is over time, what your days look like, and these are actually the colors for the different categories, the different projects. So you can see, am I spending a lot of time on personal versus work or whatever. And the line here represents your goal for the day. So I've set out to do 10 things each day, and that's the 6 Ivy League things plus 4 daily recurring things. That works for me. Kind of set it to whatever makes sense for you. Yep, and then this is taking a look at an example of like what the Seinfeld method would be, where over time when you complete your thing. So let me jump back. So you want to get like every day kind of meeting this goal. And there's this other section here I don't have in the screenshot where it'll actually tell you how many days you've completed it in a row, like what your record is so far. And this is another example for that. Like once you have that record going, so like right here, a star represents every day you've completed your 6 days, for example. If you've been going now for what, 1, 2, 3, you've got 3 weeks now that you're going, and you just have to complete one more day to be the 4th week that you've done it, perfectly. You have a lot of personal pressure. Like you feel it. Like I don't want to break the chain. I want to keep this going. I want to, I really need to get my 6 things done today, and that can be a highly motivating strategy, a highly motivating reason to go through and keep doing it. So keeping track can be really good for that. So we're kind of in the downslope of the presentation now, where we're starting to wrap up. Would you guys say, like, if the Ivy League method, or these things we've been talking about, could increase your productivity by just 1%, would that be successful? Maybe, could be. So, who here has heard of like the 80-20 principle? Okay, it's yet another sort of philosophy. It's scientific, but it's like looking at the why 20% of things influence 80% of the other things, and vice versa. So that was invented by a guy named Vilfredo Pareto. Again, back in like the 1800s, he was looking at his garden. He was an economist, but he noticed that 20% of his pea pods produced 80% of his yield. And he looked at like, okay, that's weird. Why did it break out like that? And he looked at other things in the garden, and it worked out that way too. And he looked at, okay, I wonder if other things work out that way. And like 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. And he kept seeing that everywhere he went, and so it became a popular notion. But that's true for us as well, like the things we do in our daily work. So, for example, let me switch gears slightly. So, if you have if you're trying to get a project, you're pitching to a client. There might be 10, 20 other agencies, other people kind of pitching for that project. When they decide, one person wins it, and it might be a very small margin. You just have to be a little bit better. They have to see the value in you versus another person for you to get that project. Similarly, if you're sort of doing a job interview, if you're trying to get a job, you might be going up against hundreds of other job applicants potentially. But ultimately, you only have to be better by a small margin. You only have to be slightly better than the best person. It's kind of like if you and your friends are in the woods and you're running from a bear, it's like, well, I don't have to be the fastest, right? I just have to outrun the slowest guy. The same principle is here. You just have to be slightly better than the best person to take it all, to win the entire prize. So it creates this winner-take-all mentality where the difference between like the first place and the second place might be razor thin. It might be teeny, it's the smallest amount. But the person who wins it gets everything. And this is what contributes to this 80-20 principle. So, like plants compete for the same resources. One that has a slightly better position will get more resources and will grow and get bigger and get more resources. And it sort of creates this exponential increase. Politicians compete for the same votes. Once they win, they're popular, like people know about them, and they're more likely to win, they're more likely to continue winning, they're more likely to run for a higher office. Authors compete for the bestseller list. Once they get on the bestseller list, they're more likely to do it again because, again, people know about them, and it keeps going. And it just kind of keeps going on and on. So, there's all sorts of different examples of where you just have to get it right. You just have to be slightly better that first time, and then you just kind of build on each other. And so, over time, if you're just slightly better, you will be better than the average. And if you're better than the average and you keep going, you'll continue getting better. And you'll be more likely to win those rewards. So you don't really need to be like twice as good as your competitors. You don't need to be twice as good as your coworkers or anything like that. You just have to be 1% better. And over time, that 1% will be 2%, and then 2% will be 4%, and it'll keep going. And so, like, if you go through the Ivy Lee method, you'll have these sort of like 1% wins every day. The continuous improvement will kick in. You'll have those things going for you. And then at the end of the year, just doing those 1% little things every day will add up to this huge improvement where you are kind of shining above everyone else. So 1% are, it's a pretty good thing. You just kind of got to keep going. And then the results. So, at the end of your day, once you finish the Ivy Lee method, you feel pretty amazing. You accomplish your things. You know that you finished the things that you were supposed to do that day, and it feels really good. The first time I was able to get through my 6 things, it actually took me a couple weeks before I could do all 6 things. It felt amazing. I felt really, really happy, and it was a really good experience. Also, you get more done every day. So just by being deliberate and proactive, you get the things done that you're supposed to do, and that's much better than reaching the end of the day or the end of the week and feeling like you didn't really accomplish anything. You also get to prioritize your urgent tasks more easily. So I don't want to be naive and tell you that you can tell your boss that, sorry, I can't work on that thing you just told me to do that's important. I have my 6 things. That's not on my 6 things for today. You have to wait until tomorrow. Like that's not reasonable. But it means that you can prioritize that new urgent thing in the context of the other important things that you're working on. So if you are working on other important things, you could say, okay, this new thing came in. The thing that's at the bottom of my list, I could do that tomorrow. It's not a big deal, so I'll bump that and fit this in at number 3, because it needs to be done before this, but after that. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of roll with the punches. You're still being proactive, and you're able to kind of fold that in. And you also feel prepared. I can't tell you how many times I've jumped into a meeting without having time to prep for it. Since going to the Ivy Lee method, I have time set aside specifically to prepare for my meetings each day, which makes me feel much better. I have a chance to look at the people I'm about to talk to. I have a chance to kind of read into the context of what the meeting's all about. And that fits into all sorts of things. Sorry, I kind of got to get done. So at the end of the day, Charles Schwab and Ivy Lee had this deal. How much do you think Charles Schwab sent to Ivy Lee? Does anyone want to take a guess?
Never mind. $400,000. No.
Okay, well, so at the end of the day, he wrote him a check for $25,000. Okay, so he spent 15 minutes with each executive, and he was written a check for $25,000. But that was back in the 1800s. With inflation and all those other things, you're right, it was actually $400,000. He got $400,000 for his time. So this was a businessman that ran a tight ship that could pay this guy anything he wanted, and he wrote him a check for $400,000. Like, he obviously highly valued the information that he received from Ivy Lee. So yeah, it's a great method. I have some notes in my slides here for references in various places where you can read more information about these techniques. And I'm 20 seconds over, but definitely check out the slides. You can grab those, download those, and get the resources. And yeah, thank you all for coming today. Were there any questions?
I've got one.
Yeah.
I was just curious, do you find that it's like, there's going to be periods where it's crunch time. You got to put in some extra time, overtime, a lot of work going on. Do you find that this helps reduce, following this method, helps you sort of avoid putting in, getting everything done in the 8 hours that you're given to work that day?
Yeah, so the question was, do I feel like using the Ivy Lee method helps avoid crunch time and the high stress, like I got to work overtime because I got to do this? Yes and no. Like I'm not personally in that position as much as I used to be, so I can't say from experience, but I can imagine if I have time, like if I know that this big important deadline is coming up next week, I can fold that into my 6 things each day and say I'm going to spend an hour on it today, an hour on it tomorrow, an hour on it the next day, and then at the when the time comes, it's much easier to prepare for. But I think the way that we work, in Drupal and in technology and stuff, like it's inevitable that there'll be crunch time and you have to do it. But maybe there are ways to ease that burden a little bit.
Seems like it would.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Brad.
Yeah, thank you. I'm worried about the pitfall, if to use your example, the sixth thing on the list is clean my desk. I'm afraid that after a month my desk will not.
Sure.
Do you have techniques for avoiding that?
So for me so far, like things that are not really super important, like clean my desk, is the thing I got penalized in Todoist for. And so I started getting negative points because I don't think it was clean my desk, but it was something like that where it's like, it's not a big deal if I don't do it. I'm not going to get in trouble if I don't do it. It's really more for me than for work. But like I saw those negative points, and I don't like red, X's, and I don't like negative points. And so I did reprioritize it, and it became more important, and I ended up doing it. So find what
Gamification works.
Yeah, gamification worked for me, but find what works for you, and make it an important thing. Other questions? All right. Thank you very much.